What's going on, YouTube universe? This is Zira bringing you another AFL tips, predictions and discussion video where, as always, we look ahead to round 23, the last round of the home and away season. I can't believe we're here already. This year has gone by so quickly. But before we look ahead to the final round, which has a lot of bearing on how the final 8 is going to shape up, we have to take time to reflect on the perfect round that I tipped last week in round 20. Did I say reek? Something stinks? Something stinks of fucking brilliance. I tipped 9 out of 9 last week in round 22. Kicking off Friday night, Marvel Stadium, St Kilda taking on Brisbane. I backed Brisbane by 22 points. They got up in the end by 15 points. This was a game that St Kilda kicked themselves out of. Max King, 4 or 5 shots on goal, I can't remember which it was, but every single shot he made missed the mark. Behind. It is the one thing that is stopping Max King right now from taking his game to a whole new level. He could be one of the elite full forwards of the competition by all means, and I mean that very sincerely. But the fact that he goes missing in big moments and his accuracy in front of goal is incredibly questionable. They need to get him working with somebody that can fix that. Maybe somebody like bringing in a Sav Rocker again, like they did with Levi Casbolt to fix his kicking when he was at Carlton. Something needs to happen. Something needs to go down, because Max King could have won this game off of his own boot. As a matter of fact, if he kicks 3 out of the 4 or 5 that he lost, St Kilda win the game. So Max King failing to deliver, and then in the final quarter on the flip side, you've got Brisbane and Cam Rayner, who was very quiet throughout the game, stands tall in the last quarter, kicks 3 goals off his own boot and pretty much wins the game for Brisbane by himself. Solid effort, and kicked my week off strong with one of those green ticks. The next game, Bulldogs, GWS, Marvel Stadium, Saturday afternoon. We backed the Bulldogs in, and it was a close contest. I found myself in a position where I wanted the Bulldogs to win for my tip, but I really wanted GWS to win at the end, because Richmond at that point in time hadn't locked up a top 8 spot. So Bulldogs winning kind of put a little bit of danger into the mix. However, I'm very happy they got the win in the end. GWS are going to finish this year as a bottom 4 team, which I still cannot get my head around, considering it was only a couple of years ago they played in a grand final. I know they've lost some talent since then, and things are only going to get worse, as we've pointed out over the last couple of weeks in my tipping videos. But they played a really good brand. They really did. There's hope there. But some of that talent at the end of the year, I think, is going to go elsewhere. So I don't know where this leaves GWS as a club moving forward. Something I'm looking forward to assessing at the end of the year when, because of a recommendation from some of you guys, I'll be looking at each club individually and assessing how I felt their season went, how they can improve moving forward, which players they should recruit, who should they get rid of, all that kind of stuff. I'm really looking forward to deep diving into clubs, but Marvel Stadium saw the Bulldogs win and gave myself the second green tick of the round. We then shift down to South Australia, Adelaide Oval, Adelaide taking on North Melbourne, and Adelaide won quite sizably in the end. It was funny because Mark Rasciuto on commentary said that either Adelaide or North Melbourne are going to have to kick over 100 points to win this game. And at that point in time, I thought he was talking some bullshit, because it didn't look like either team was going to score that amount. And the Crows did in the end. This is another game, however, back-to-back weeks. North Melbourne's effort has not been reflected on the scoreboard at the end of the game. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, they played Sydney at Marvel, and they got beaten quite convincingly, but they played good football. Last week, they got beaten again, quite convincingly, but they played good football. There are great signs with this North Melbourne group. Things are going to start clicking eventually. We're not going to see results straight away, but the fact that they're playing a harder brand. They're playing a more contested brand. They're using each other well. They're communicating better. You know, players like Nick Larkey are now standing up tall and kicking big bags. They're digging deep. They're fighting for a bit of respect, and I think they've pretty much earned a lot of respect over the back of the last 2 weeks. But however, Adelaide got the win. Gives myself my third tick. Metricon Stadium, Gold Coast, Geelong. I said even though it was at Metricon, Geelong were going to rock up and do it quite convincingly. And they did so right here, ladies and gentlemen. 60 points exactly to the T. I think I said about 8 or 9 goals the way of Geelong, so I was pretty convinced there. Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins, Tyson Stengel, what can I say? They all did what they were expected to do. The big outcome out of this game, however, Jeremy Cameron has done a hamstring, which is going to see him out potentially. Well, he's guaranteed to miss this week. There's the pre-final bye, and then he is also tipped to miss Geelong's first final. However, Geelong can't lose top spot of the ladder, so they're going to finish minor premiers this year, and they can afford to probably rest Jeremy Cameron. And even if he has the hamstring right to go for week 1, why risk him? You've got the double chance. If you win, you get an extra week off. If you lose, bring Jeremy Cameron in to help. That's just my opinion, and I think that's the route Geelong will go down by. At this point in time, my opinion, I've said it the last couple of weeks, Geelong's premiership to lose. If they lose it from here, well, we all know. I've pointed it out. Geelong have been a great home and away team for the last, I don't know how many years. When it comes to September, every other team seems to stand taller. So, is this the year the Cats get their premiership, or is it a year again that they're destined to be the bridesmaid and not the bride? MCG Melbourne Carlton, game of the round. When Charlie Curnow, who had done nothing all night, stood up and kicked that goal with less than 2 minutes to go, or around 2 minutes to go, and put Carlton in front, I lost my mind. Absolutely lost my mind. Not because Melbourne were losing. It's a little bit deeper than that. And for those of you that have been following my tipping videos through the year, you would know that I said after round 1, I took my son to round 1 courtesy of Richmond, who invited the both of us there. My son had a jumper presentation from Jack Rewalt and Toby Nankervis. It was a great experience for my son. He met Sydney Stack, he met Morris Rioli Jr. There was a couple of other players that were in the crowd. We sat next to David Asprey, ex-premiership player, and had a good chat with him. But when we left the stadium, the amount of abuse I copped from Carlton supporters, unwarranted and directed directly at myself without being provoked, being jeered because of my weight, being jeered because I was a Richmond supporter. And here I am trying to get my 5-year-old son out of the stadium. At that point in time, I convinced myself, I really hope Carlton have a really terrible year this year, because all the disrespect I copped in front of my son broke me down. And I don't normally hold grudges, but when Keziah Pickett stood up with less than 20 seconds to go and put Melbourne in front, it was the most I had celebrated for an opposing team to hit the front in my life. And at this point in time, I sit here wondering whether those people that were jeering me are now just a little bit worried that they went the early crow and they're going to miss finals altogether. Melbourne and Carlton slogged it out. Carlton probably deserved to win. I feel they played better football. Melbourne capitalised at better moments. And they had a lot of players that were quiet. Like, I think Ben Brown took his first mark of the game in the last quarter or the third quarter. It was something ridiculous like that. But Melbourne, I feel, they've dropped off from the brand they were playing at the start of the year. And I think come finals, there could be some teams that can capitalise on the fact that they aren't playing at the top level that we have seen them, the more dominating level that they've been playing. However, I'm happy because, let's count them, ladies and gentlemen. That's tick 1, tick 2, tick 3. Melbourne gave me tick 4. And then we move on to Saturday night, rather. I apologise. Fremantle, West Coast, the Derby, whatever you want to call it. I tipped Fremantle. Fremantle got up over the line in a very good win to see David Mundy play his final game in Perth for the home and away season. He is officially retired, one of the AFL greats. I feel he'll be a Hall of Famer. He will be inducted. Fremantle legend, icon, whatever you want to call him. He has given his heart and soul to Perth, and it was good to see them get a win for him. Sean Darcy, the ruckman, wins the best on ground medallion. Had something like 20 plus disposals. He had 56 hit-outs for the game. Tom Barrass, on the flip side of things, was the best for West Coast. His intercepting game has been phenomenal. And even though West Coast sits second last on the ladder, questions need to be asked as to whether Tom Barrass is going to be nominated for an All-Australian position, because I feel he's earned it this year. First game on Sunday afternoon, Richmond, Hawthorn. Ladies and gentlemen, have a look right there on the screen. 61 points the way of the Tigers. I didn't think we would win by that margin, and I did say in my last video that out of the Hawthorn and Essendon games to come for Richmond, I felt Hawthorn were a bigger threat. Hawthorn looked good when they moved the ball. Richmond have just been clicking with their game style. The momentum keeps rolling. Tom Lynch kicked 8 majors, and he passed a couple off. He could have well and truly kicked 10. He is now sitting equal third on the Coleman ladder. So the run home for the Coleman could be very interesting too, with some teams in the mix that we'll talk about in a minute. Trent Cotchin, 30 plus disposals, 8 clearances. Dion Prestia, 30 plus disposals, 11 clearances. These are players that are really lifting at the right time. You've got Tom Lynch, who kicked 8. Shai Bolton got tagged for most of the game, but still managed 5 clearances, kicked a goal, laid some tackles. He didn't have as much of the ball. He wasn't as influential, but this is a player that a lot of the media have been earmarking at the moment as one of the best players in the competition. Some actually saying he's the best player in the competition currently. And even though he was tagged and his influence was taken out of the game, Richmond still did big things. That is very scary. But I was very happy as a Richmond man to get the win. And my 7th tick for the round, SCG, Sydney Collingwood. Jordan De Goey late out for Collingwood before the game. Trent Bianco came in. Jack Ginnivan subbed out with a hamstring injury. There was a lot of press this week about the Sydney crowd booing Jack Ginnivan when he came up on the screen. Let me just identify the elephant in the room. They were not booing Ginnivan because he was injured. So all this whole, this whole stigma around, shame on you for booing an injured player. They weren't booing him because he was injured, and they were probably going to boo him and would have booed him if he played out the rest of the game. It's the reputation he has built for himself that is causing the booing to go down. Very similarly with Sydney and Adam Goodes. Adam Goodes was not getting booed in the back end of his career because he was Aboriginal or because he was, has black skin. No, that's not the case. He was getting booed because of the shit he did on the field. There is a line. Don't cross it. I get that. Don't cross it with racism, which unfortunately Keziah Pickett copped some racism from the crowd and social media people, and it's disgusting that happens. Adam Goodes did cop that racism that game from Collingwood, which is kind of ironic, because, Collingwood booed Adam Goodes and now... Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, this wasn't an attack on Jack Ginnivan because he was injured. They're just booing him because he's built a bad reputation for himself. Sydney, however, I backed in to win. They did it quite comfortably in the end. I didn't think there was any point of the game where they looked like they weren't in control. Even when Collingwood started pressing them hard, Sydney had the composure to just sit back, be calm about it, reset, get the job done. Sydney, as I said last week, week before, the last few weeks, nobody is talking about the sleeping giant that is Sydney. The conversation recently has been about how well Collingwood has been. Nobody's talking about Sydney. I think they should, because Sydney's a real cheeky chance. That was my 8th tick. Final game of the round, Port Adelaide absolutely smacked Essendon, and a lot of shit has gone down since. The CEO, or it was either the CEO or the president of Essendon, has stepped down, moved out. Rutten will probably coach his last game this weekend. He'll be gone. It's currently a race, I believe, between Alistair Clarkson for the role of coach at Essendon or North Melbourne. I feel he goes to North. The players have checked out at Essendon. There was footage on the weekend where Rutten was trying to give, instruction to his players, and they were just looking elsewhere. They weren't interested in listening to him. When a coach has lost their players that badly, there's no coming back from it. The disrespect he is being shown from that club is pretty shocking. It's the worst I've seen any player deal with a coach in a very long time. But as you can see, that's 9 out of 9. And I thought to myself, I'm finally going to move up the ladder and I'm going to move in the top 10. But in a 39-player competition, 11 people, including myself, tipped a perfect round. So, to Welsh Duke, hi to you too, Nintendo TN, Brighton 75, Rockstar Pool 69, Macca 0303, Calm the Cats, ArghGodzirra, oh thank you very much, Max Clark. So to Welsh Duke, hi to you too, Nintendo TN, Brighton 75, Rockstar Pool 69, Macca 0303, I stumbled a little bit there, Calm the Cats, ArghGodzirra, thank you very much, Max Clark, Some Cripple, and my old man, the Motherfuckers. Congratulations for tipping a perfect round to finish what is almost the year. Let's see how it shapes up with the total tips. We still have a tie for first place, which is going to come down to the wire. Both players tipped a perfect round last week. This could have been the chance for Some Cripple to move from second to first. This could have been the chance for Heidi U2 to get a gap, but they both tipped perfect rounds, 139 apiece. So congratulations to the both of you for holding top spot down. The top 10 rounds out with Brighton 75 and Freo 90. They've been up and about in the top 4 all season. Welsh Duke, Rockstar Pool 69, Macca 0303, Max Clark, CWA, and Nintendo TN. I moved up from 17th to 14th. I've got to make up this week. Is it 3 spots? Yeah, I've got to tip 3 spots. I've got to pretty much tip 3 different tips just to level the field, but 4 tips differently in order to crack into the top 10. So this week, to round out the season, I've actually had a look at the fixture and I've got the 4 tips in mind that I'm thinking I'm going to go a little bit left field and see if I can make up some ground. So, here we go. Round 23. Final game of the home and away season. It kicks off Friday night at the Gabba. Brisbane, Melbourne. Now for Brisbane, Calamarchi and Marcus Adams have both failed to get up from concussion tests. They will not be playing this game. Both are huge outs for Brisbane. Marcus Adams as a lockdown defender has been huge for Brisbane. Calamarchi's run and polish on the outside is absolutely incredible for them as well. Then you've got, on the flip side, you've got Melbourne, who probably shouldn't have got up against Carlton last week, but found a way to dig deep and do so, and they're still fit and firing. It's a tough one, but given that it's at the Gabba, I'm going to go with Brisbane, only because Brisbane this year have only dropped 1 game at the Gabba. That was to Essendon, and that was when Brisbane had like 10 outs for that game, and I think 8 of them were due to COVID, so they had to bring in a lot of youth. I think Brisbane are going to win a tight contest here. I'm going to go 15 points the way of Brisbane. I think it's only going to be a couple of kicks in it. Could we see Cam Rayner stand up again? It's going to be a good battle to see Ben Brown at one end, Joe Danaher at the other end. I think Joe Danaher's had the better year. I think he'll have the better of the game on Friday night. And this win for Brisbane, or Melbourne, respectively, locks in a top 4 spot for them. The loser potentially finishes as low as 6th place and will play either Richmond or whoever can move up into... Sorry, not 6th... Yeah, we'll play 7th place. So at the moment they'll be playing Richmond, but if a Carlton or a Bulldogs or a St Kilda, can shift up... Well, actually they can't. Carlton's the only one. So they'll play either Richmond or Carlton, depending on how outcomes go in the first final. Again, huge stakes to play for here. I think Brisbane rise to the occasion and win a close contest. Saturday afternoon, We're playing up in Canberra. We've got GWS taking on Fremantle. My first outside tip of the round, I'm actually going to back GWS to get up and win this game. They could have stolen the win late against the Bulldogs last week, but failed to capitalise. Fremantle have gotten over the line against a West Coast team who have struggled all year, but we've seen them travel this year and have played some questionable football when they play sometimes. They've been losing the games they've been expected to win. They lock up again, another team fighting for a top 4 finish. Everything on the line. You feel Fremantle's going to throw everything at it, but I feel GWS going back home, final game of the round, nothing left to lose. I think they're a chance to roll the dice and get up and win. Especially if it's the last time we potentially could see players like, Jacob Hopper, Tom Green, Tim Taranto, Taylor Brun, or Tanner Brun, I think it's Tanner Brun, and Bobby Hill, players like that. If they're all tipped to go to other clubs at the end of the year, I think this might be like the one final hurrah for GWS as a collective, and I'm backing them in as an outsider to win that game. Marvel Stadium, Saturday afternoon, North Melbourne, Gold Coast. I'm tipping North Melbourne. You're probably sitting there thinking, I've lost my fucking marbles, the wheels have fallen off. I've just pointed out that North Melbourne have played incredibly improved football. Like, they have improved immensely over the last 2 weeks. They took it to Sydney, and then last week they took it to Adelaide. They just didn't get the result on the scoreboard. I feel after a demoralising win at home last week for the Gold Coast, they come down here and travel, and I think could be probably the mindset that they would come down here and win. I think North Melbourne are hungry to get one more win on the board. I think North Melbourne get it done. I really do. I like what North Melbourne have been doing. I feel Nick Larkey's going to come out and kick. Nick Larkey's going to kick 5. And it's going to be a very impressive showing from North Melbourne as a collective. It could be, does Ben Cunnington stay on at the club? Could this be his last game for North Melbourne? I think they really get up for Ben Cunnington this week, and for the shin boners that support them as well. So, fingers crossed North Melbourne can get up. GMHBA Stadium, Twilight Football, Geelong, West Coast. No Jeremy Cameron, no worries. This is going to get ugly. This is going to be as good as a percentage boost as Geelong have had in a very long time, and they don't need it because they can't lose top spot, but this is where teams playing themselves into very good form can go a long way. This is where the pre-final bye really screws things up because it puts everyone on a bit of a halt. But Geelong here knocking off West Coast in a big way, that's a lot of steamrolling momentum going into the first round of finals, and I hate to be the team that runs into Geelong in the first week. I really do. This is where I said the Coleman gets interesting as well, because we have both Tom Lynch and Tom Hawkins 7 goals behind Charlie Curnow. If Charlie Curnow can be held goalless, and either Tom Hawkins or Tom Lynch can come out and have an 8 to 10 goal game, they could win it. No Jeremy Cameron makes Tom Hawkins the number 1 target in the forward line, and Tom Hawkins has the capability of kicking 8 to 10 against West Coast. I'm actually going to go as far as saying I don't think Hawkins will kick less than 6 goals for this game. And I think he'll combine with Tyson Stengel for 10 total. Saturday night, the first of 2 games. Time clashing. Ridiculous. Essendon taking on Richmond. Lock in the Tigers here. Quite convincingly so. I think Richmond, and the way they've played the last 3 weeks, has spoken really about how well they're starting to click. Almost 50 points down against Brisbane. Come back and win. Go to Port Adelaide, where most would have expected them to lose. Win pretty convincingly. Come out last week against Hawthorn. Win by 10 goals. This week we're coming up against Essendon, where the players have checked out against their coach. They've been in the media all week. I know there's whispers about they're apparently going to be maybe naming Michael Hurley to come back in for one final game. I understand the sentiment. I don't see why you would bother. There's better ways to see somebody off. I really want to see Richmond put the foot down like they did against Hawthorn last week and just smack Essendon. Like, make a statement going into finals. I personally believe Richmond can go into September this year and do damage. I see a world where we can make it to the grand final. Not saying we can win it, but I can see us getting there. You've seen previous years, Richmond have made a way of building momentum and getting to the finals, and then when it's really on the line, they just go to a new gear. That same Richmond has been the Richmond we have seen the past 3 weeks. Again, I point out on the ladder, if we had won just 3 of the fade-out games that we had lost, we would be currently fighting to stay in the top 4. We'd actually be in the top 4 right now, playing to lock in a double chance spot. That is how well Richmond have actually played. Like, I know it's not good to see them fade away, but I think a lot of people have understated Richmond's season. You take out all those little fade-outs, you know, in hindsight, they've been one of the better teams in the competition. And I really think, and I really hope, we have a good run in September this year, especially with Dusty hopefully ready to go week 1, and I think he's primed to tear it up. And then the final game for Saturday is the South Australian clash, the Derby again. Port Adelaide. 1 game separates this club. Port Adelaide have won 1 more game than Adelaide have, and had Port Adelaide not have won last week against Essendon, these 2 teams would be fighting to be the team that is better than the other by 1 win. Port Adelaide in a very convincing win last week, 80-odd points. Adelaide getting it done against North Melbourne, so both are coming into form. Adelaide have won the last 3 games, however, and they have looked very good when moving the footy. Port Adelaide, again, they lost to Richmond a couple of weeks ago, but they still played good football. Todd Marshall comes back into the mix. They start clicking in the forward line again. They have a big win. However, I'm going out on a limb. I'm backing Adelaide to win this one. Adelaide clipped them at the start of the year for their first win against Port. I think they do it again. Got to roll the dice. I said I got to roll the dice to get in the top 10. I'm really wanting to roll it. Tasmania kicks off Sunday. Hawthorn and the Bulldogs. As we've mentioned last week, Bulldogs fell over the line in a close contest against GWS. Hawthorn got belted by Richmond, but still showed very good patches of football. This year, Hawthorn have travelled incredibly well to Tasmania, and I have backed against them numerous times. I'm not mistaking myself by making that poor decision again. I'm backing Hawthorn to beat the Bulldogs in Tasmania, which would rule out the Bulldogs making it into the top 8, which would mean that Carlton would finish in 8th spot, which really breaks my heart, and I want the Bulldogs to get in. If the Bulldogs can prove me wrong here, and I hope they do, I want to see Carlton fall out of the top 8, and I'm not holding that against any of the people that support this channel that go for Carlton. Just reflect back on what I said at the start of the video. It's aimed at those bastards. But I'm tipping Hawthorn in Tasmania. I think they play very well down there. Bulldogs, they've got to roll the dice. And I've said roll the dice a couple of times, but that's because there's so much on the line. Win this, and they move into the top 8. Lose this, and they're not playing finals. And this is a team that played in the grand final last year. So big things to come for the Bulldogs this weekend. Sunday, probably going to be game of the round. Carlton, Collingwood. Carlton have to win this game to stay in the 8. Collingwood have to win this game if they want to stay in the top 4. A lot to play for. A lot to play for. Apparently, Adam Cerra and Zach Williams for Carlton are chances to get up here. Jordan De Goey should come back in for Collingwood. Jack Ginnivan is fighting the clock to get off that hamstring. Hopefully it's not too bad. He can come back in this week. It's even on Sportsbet. I'm going the way of Collingwood here. I think Collingwood's polish is just going to be a little bit too good for Carlton. But in saying that, Carlton's rebound and the ability to just turn the game on its head against Melbourne last week was very pivotal in a lot of their gameplay. The amount of lead changes in that last quarter alone were phenomenal. Carlton have the team to win. Collingwood have the team to win. It's a real arm wrestle. It's a 50-50 coin flip. I'm probably at this point better off flipping a coin to determine who I'm going to tip. I'm tipping Collingwood because I feel they've had the better season. They've got the better team. But Carlton could very much win this game and play finals in 2022. And the final game of the round is St Kilda taking on Sydney. We're taking Sydney. Sydney's going to finish second on the ladder quite comfortably. I don't see any avenues where St Kilda upset Sydney's run. As I said at the start of the video, Max King had the chance last week off his own boot to win the game for Brisbane and went missing. Could he come out this week and absolutely turn the game on its head and just kick 100% accuracy? Very well could. I don't think he will. And Sydney on the flip side, everything is starting to click for Sydney. They don't just depend on a couple of players to lift. It's a collective, especially with the young kids. Probably as far as collective of young kids go, Sydney's got the cream of the crop. They're really up there with their young bunch. And I'm going to save my tips. I'm very confident this week in my ability. The gauntlet has ended, I can see there. But to reflect on my tips this week, going on a couple of limbs, we're going with Brisbane, GWS, North Melbourne, Geelong, Richmond, Adelaide, Hawthorn, Collingwood and Sydney. If I tip a perfect round this week, I'll be very impressed because that will definitely lock me in for the top 10. But I will be upset because, as I said, I would love to see the look on those Carlton supporter faces that abused me at the start of the year if they missed the top 8, having started the year off 8-2. It's a very big week of football, ladies and gentlemen. Final game of the home and away season, and never fear, I am going to be running a tipping comp for finals. Well, you know, I'll do a tipping video for finals where I give my tips. And because there's only 8 teams playing in the finals, I'll be able to get a little bit more in depth with each of the teams as well and talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for joining me for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do leave a like, subscribe if you're new. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.